Good evening. My name is Hageman, and this is my instructional leadership performance task. Mrs. C is in her 4th year of teaching at an elementary school in Central Florida, where she teaches 3rd grade mathematics, science, and Spanish language arts. She has both a morning and an afternoon class. Her first class consists of 17 students, including 8 boys and 9 girls, one of whom is identified as gifted. There are also 9 students who are English language learners. 53% of Mrs. C's students are native Spanish speakers. A strong positive rapport has been established between Mrs. C and me. Nolan and Hoover emphasized the importance of supervisors building supportive relationships with teachers, noting that trust and open communication are key for promoting collaboration and success. After reviewing the class's fast math progress monitoring 2 results, we identified that 11% of students achieved grade level proficiency, 24% are considered bubble kids, and 65% made learning gains. The pre-conference took place in Mrs. C's classroom during her planning time, starting with a check-in on how she was doing. During our conversation, she shared concerns that while students understood the skills during lessons, she often wondered why they struggled to retain or apply them on unit tests and standardized assessments, making it difficult for students to demonstrate mastery. As Nolan and Hoover explained, the action research process begins with questions that arise from a teacher's daily practice, which was exactly what happened during our discussion. The conversation set the stage for identifying strategies to address her concerns and support student learning. Having visited Mrs. C's class previously, I knew that scaffolding was not the main focus, as she already provides ample support for her multilinguals. Instead, I guided the conversation around the question, how do you know students are mastering the content before summative assessments? Mrs. C shared techniques she had used, such as response boards and unrecorded assessments, including the thumbs up and thumbs down technique from past lessons. I then asked if she would be open to me identifying other factors in her upcoming lesson by listing all the questions she asked during instruction. Nolan and Hoover note that teachers often lack awareness of certain aspects of their teaching behaviors. Using a selective verbatim would allow us to monitor Mrs. C's questions and analyze her questioning patterns, providing insights into how she monitors and checks for student understanding. Mrs. C was intrigued by the idea as it would provide valuable insights into her teaching practices. Mrs. C began the lesson by reading the learning targets out loud. I can identify line-symmetric two-dimensional figures. I can draw lines of symmetry in a two-dimensional figure. She then demonstrated the I do portion of the gradual release model, folding a pink rectangle while students followed along with their own paper. As she folded, she began asking a series of questions. Her first question was, do you remember what parallel means? I recorded the questions she asked as part of the selective verbatim tool. After identifying the lines of symmetry in a rectangle, Mrs. C had students write down the vocabulary, focusing on cognates like symmetry. She reminded students on the importance of recognizing cognates to help students understand new words by relating them to familiar terms in their native language. This approach reinforced both vocabulary and language skills. As students wrote, Mrs. C distributed squared pieces of paper for the We Do. In the We Do phase, Mrs. C guided students as they folded the square paper to explore the lines of symmetry in a square. She gave them time to observe and document their findings. While students worked, she walked around the room, offering guidance and praising students for staying on task. Once she had reviewed the lines of symmetry in a square, Mrs. C began pairing students for the You Do portion of the lesson. I noticed that Mrs. C modified her plan by having students work in pairs instead of groups of 4. Students' task was to identify the lines of symmetry of 5 different shapes while she worked with a small group. Students who finished their task early moved to a designated area without hesitation. Their transition was smooth, indicating that clear procedures were established. There was little to no disruption to the rest of the class, as students knew exactly where to go and what to do. This structure kept early finishers engaged while allowing others to focus on their work. With 10 minutes left in class, she gave students an exit ticket to assess their understanding. During the revision of the selected verbatim notes I took, I immediately noticed that many of the questions Mrs. C asked were close-ended, limiting students to simple yes or no answers. While close-ended questions are important for assessing basic understanding, open-ended questions encourage students to explore the material more thoroughly and develop their ideas further. These types of questions promote critical thinking, allowing students to reflect on the content, make connections, and express their thoughts more clearly, which ultimately deepens their understanding and enhances their ability to apply knowledge. Upon analyzing the set of questions asked by Mrs. C, I found that 76% of the questions were close-ended and limited students' opportunity to expand their listening. In Principles of Instruction, Research-Based Strategies That All Teachers Should Know, Rosenshine reinforced that while asking many questions is essential, the most effective teachers also ask students to explain the reasoning behind their answers. This observation made it clear that more open-ended questions were needed to encourage deeper student engagement and critical thinking. While students were working in pairs on the You-Do activity or in small group with Mrs. C, I was particularly interested in the factors she considered when selecting students to work with during small group instruction. It was unclear whether her selections were based on prior knowledge of the student behavior, or group dynamics. Nolan and Hoover state that a key decision for a supervisor is determining who will lead the interpretation of data and set the agenda for the post-observation conference. This decision should align with the teacher's developmental stage to ensure the feedback is tailored to their needs. Given that Mrs. C is a fourth-year teacher who actively reflects on her practice and is receptive to feedback, I adopted a collaborative approach to the post-conference. To stimulate generative thinking, I used the EC framework to guide our conversation. Through targeted questions, Mrs. C recognized that many of the questions she asked during the lesson were close-ended. She saw the value of incorporating more open-ended questions to encourage deeper thinking and student engagement. We then discussed strategies to promote whole class discussions, particularly by modifying the Think, Pair, Share strategy to Think, Write, Pair, Share. This modification would provide struggling students more time to process their thoughts through writing before sharing with a partner. We also focused on providing time for multilinguals to organize and express their ideas effectively. During our pre-conference and observation, I focused on how to best support Mrs. C's growth. As we discussed the lesson, I observed how many generative questions encourage her to critically assess her teaching choices, reinforcing the importance of asking the right questions to guide reflection. Active listening played a key role in this process, helping me better understand her teaching style and tailor my questions to address her specific needs. Reflecting on my role, I recognize the value of providing feedback that is both supportive and actionable. One challenge I encountered initially was understanding why students struggle with showing mastery on unit tests. By observing her methods for checking for understanding and using the selective verbatim tool, I was able to identify areas for growth, particularly in how she monitors student comprehension. Seeing Mrs. C make intentional changes to promote critical thinking and student engagement was rewarding. Moving forward, I plan to help her establish a consistent monitoring system that uses data to form small groups and track student growth. I will also schedule a check-in meeting to discuss progress and identify any additional support needed. I will also analyze the results of the upcoming unit test with her to assess student progress and determine necessary instructional adjustments. This experience reinforced the importance of ongoing reflection and instructional support. Teaching is always evolving, and teachers benefit from clear feedback, guidance, and a strong supervisor-teacher relationship built on trust and open communication. When teachers feel supported in improving their practice, student learning and engagement improve as well.